Join us. Circle the globe. The planet is your hunting paradise. And one man will show you the world as you've never seen it before. Danger won't stop him. Nature won't break him or prevent him from doing the impossible. Hunting the earth with bow and arrow. Be there to share this adventure. The ultimate journey for the ultimate shot.
I'm Άρτσι Νέσμπιτ, and I will be your guide in the quest for the ultimate shot. Please settle yourselves in comfortably, because now and in the weeks ahead, you are going to see one of the most incredible hunting adventures, and we are going to take part in this together. You will witness some extremely dangerous situations and top bow hunting achievements. You will learn how only due to the passion of hunting, uniting hundreds of thousands of people in organized hunting societies, whole animal species are preserved from extinction. I joined SCI almost 30 years ago. In this first show, we will go back 10 years in time to 2001. And I will show you how, with enthusiasm of youth, I pushed against the bureaucratic roadblocks and obstacles put in the way of bow hunters. My memory of how government officials treated me when I declared to them that I will hunt with bow and arrows, the biggest animals in Africa, is still fresh in my mind. And today, we at SCI are still working on those governments, just in different countries and for different species. One of the 7 wonders of the world is Victoria Falls, in one of the richest countries, hosting varied precious metals and minerals. In the past, and in the present too, Zimbabwe has been a power of attraction for human greed for diamonds, gold, and rhinoceros. That's right, there's no mistake. I said, and rhinoceros, because as an animal species, they are the most precious that Zim and South Africa ever had. The rhinoceros, black and white, are the greatest victims of poachers in Africa. The prohibition of trade in parts of this animal has not had any real results for the past 30 years. At the moment, the price of a kilogram of rhinoceros horn in China is $60,000. This illegal trade does not bring any profit to the people who try to preserve the species. The only real benefit for the rhinoceros are the revenues from legal hunting, which results from their preservation, conservation, and propagation. With the strict security measures taken by the government and the ethics standards set by the members of SCI worldwide, many species, and rhinoceros in particular, are still among the endangered species and have definitely been saved from any threat of extinction from the face of the earth. In this segment of The Ultimate Shot, we will take part in an historic rhinoceros hunt. Historical because we will be among the first hunters that have successfully hunted this enormous and dangerous animal with a bow. And this way, we will pay our homage to the cycle of renewing the population of this species. The positive emotions that I felt before the hunt were quickly replaced by a wholesome fear when I first saw the menacing profile of the rhinoceros. I knew that this 3-ton animal can develop a speed of up to 25 miles an hour. The close encounter with this prehistorical creature made me shiver with the thought of really how helpless a bow hunter is against some creatures in nature. After a half an hour of maneuvering, we found the trophy rhino that management had decided to remove and that we were after in a clearing. At the moment I finally reached my elected shooting position, the rhinoceros noticed me and did exactly what I feared most. With my bow already drawn, I froze. With no movement, the animals decided that I was not a threat or danger. They turned back slowly to disappear into the bush.
All the way to the feathers.
Well, John, that's number 3. We pulled a perfect shot on it. Perfect shot. that big crease behind the shoulder, and we planted that arrow in there, and around 20 yards, and right to the fletching. It probably hit bone on the other side, and that's what stopped it. But that arrow got 30 inches of penetration, and right where I was holding, right in that big crease. And, you know, I think just a great, I mean, Jim Hebert and myself in this project we're doing for bow hunters and for SCI, and everyone else that should be over hunting these animals, and hunting them means with the bow and arrow. I mean, John, it's finished. It was a perfect shot.
The chase of the wounded rhinoceros turned out to be longer than I expected. With an almost perfect-looking shot, I was certain that I would find it down and out at 100 yards. The ranch PH had decided to follow immediately, which breaks the #1 cardinal rule of bow hunting. After 10 minutes of tracking, we caught up with the wounded animal. What could be worse than confronting a wounded, enraged rhinoceros face to face? I obviously had lots of adrenaline, but near the end of a Big 5 hunt, I had only a few custom 1200 grain arrows left in my quiver. At the start of my Big 5 hunt, I knew the risks that each and every one of these animals would potentially want to kill me. And now we were pushing the envelope big time. Fortunately, the rhinoceros did not attack. I managed to stick another arrow between its ribs at the last second. This shot finished the big animal, and the rhinoceros slowly lay down in the dry bushes.
Well, John, we have our number 3. We've got our big rhino, and we came in on it, as you'll see in the tape, and it was lying down after the first shot. We'll see where that one went. Probably not in the heart, probably just in the lungs, but we were able to get a couple more arrows in it and drop it here very close to where we first saw it. How probably affected it. So Jim, what reverence? Our quest was for the Big 5. We're at the Big 3, and we don't have our permit for the elephant. So we'll continue on at some point in the future. We will. When we're going to, funds from this hunt will allow the people that are breeding these rhinos to replace this animal and with several more. And that's just the value of wildlife that allows us to hunt this. It's a sustainable use of wildlife, and we're part of the whole cycle to make it possible to give these animals value. And without us giving them the great value that they have, they wouldn't be reproducing in such great numbers, and they wouldn't have this kind of opportunity.
That's exactly right, Arch. It goes back to the animals in the long run, and that's the most important part.
George, I want to thank you for all bow hunters in the world for letting us hunt elephant in Zimbabwe and making it a successful hunt and a great opportunity to show that you can successfully harvest the biggest animal on earth with an arrow from a well-placed shot with a modern bow, and we had a great hunt.
In my whole hunting career, this is the hardest to obtain license to hunt which I have received, fighting bureaucracy and the bow hunter mistrust by officials. Nevertheless, I succeeded, and I had the chance to try and bring down the biggest animal on dry land with a bow and arrow. My first encounter with the giants was from afar. The small herd consisted only of females with their young. So we diverted and headed towards the inner parts of the bush, close to the big rivers, which take their source from the Mosio Tuna. The chances of encountering a big bull seemed greater. On the road, I provided the camp with some meat. The food in Africa is limited, and every animal killed during a hunt meant two things: meat for the locals and financial help for the government in its fight for the preservation of the wild animals. We used our passage along the road to erase the old tracks left in the soft dust. On our next passage here, we would immediately know the fresh tracks were made by elephants crossing the road. The elephant was slightly disturbed by our presence, but obviously it had not smelled us yet. The wind blew our smell crosswind, but if we decided to approach it straight ahead, it would smell us. We had to go around so as to approach against the wind. Our tactics proved right, and we found the big animal still among the thick foliage right where we had left it. The branches were thickly intertwined, so we could not even speak of a sure shot. I had no right to take risks. The first bow shot had to be straight and deadly. I had to be sure that I justified the confidence in the decision given to me. After making a painstaking, time-consuming stalk, the elephant came out of the thick bush into a small clearing. We were approaching it slowly and cautiously in column. But as carefully as we were, the sound of a broken twig caught its attention. The suspicious elephant had already given a signal of danger to the rest of the herd, grazing somewhere in the bush around us. And now it was only a waiting game for it to see what was its opponent. Calmed by the silence that fell and the lack of movement, the elephant continued to take bites from the fresh bushes. The tusks of this young animal were small, and it had many years ahead of it to chase females around in the Jess. We left it and continued onward, following the sound of broken twigs, searching for swaying treetops to see some other animals from the herd which we could hear and see in the distance. Very quickly we found the next glutton, but unfortunately, we saw only its enormous behind. We had either to go around or to wait for it to turn around. We managed to see its ivory, but it noticed us too. The closeness of the river could be felt in the air. The leaves which covered the ground everywhere covered the lower part of the trees too, and they and their intertwined trunks and branches formed a curtain, behind which we moved forward, found a herd of zebras at one moment and a hungry lioness at the next. Just a moment ago, we were on the predator cat's menu on the same page as the zebras. It was quite a thrill. Fortunately, we got away with no accidents. Then, I did not know it yet. But now, after years of gaining experience, I can say that the lionesses are several times more aggressive than the males. Very often, they are not afraid of the hunters because they have learned that people don't generally hunt them. Our next encounter with the biggest mammal was quite unexpected. After a turn in the path, we simply ran into, a mere 20 yards away, an elephant's behind. Quickly, we turned back, and it did not even sense our presence, or so we thought. It is not good for the hunter to run away, but I confess that is exactly what we did when the elephant gave chase to us. After the attack passed, we gathered our things we dropped while running away and continued along the track left by the big and heavy animal, well visible in the soft soil. It led us straight to the bank of the Chitui River, where the elephant had taken mud baths in the water. After a long and detailed examination of the tracks, we decided to search for another specimen in the thick bush along the river, called Jess by the locals. Soon we found ourselves among a whole herd, scattered through the low trees, covered with ivy and lianas. We heard the trumpeting elephants from everywhere. We just had to come close enough to manage to determine if the animals suited us. Enough really meant 20 yards. Long and heavy tusks were a bonus as a trophy, but the important thing was to be sure that the elephant we arrowed was a male and it was beyond its active reproductive age. I was really excited to go into the herd of elephants. I had dreamed about this since I was only 15, and my grandfather gave me my first recurve bow.
Hey, that's worth the trip, isn't it?
Attracted by the water, the wild animals were literally everywhere in this green hunting paradise. The next day we would try our luck in the low mountains and foothills, overgrown with thick vegetation. The biggest part of them are not higher than 3,000 feet. Nyangani, at 8,000 feet, was looming as a distant silhouette on the horizon. Besides our main task, to find a good mature elephant specimen, I also wanted to take some antelope trophies. But above all, we had to concentrate on our number one priority. Can you guess what happened? We were just about run over by an elephant, and at the moment when we all had to run away, we encountered Big John the obstacle, our cameraman, who, engrossed with filming, had not estimated the seriousness of the situation. Only good luck saved us from the worst. We will leave my encounters with elephants for a while, and we will pay attention to some other mammal, almost as big as the elephant, but many times more dangerous for people. More than half of the deaths caused by wild animals in Africa are due to attacks of hippopotamus and crocodiles. The locals, who maintain themselves mainly by agriculture and fishing along the rivers, are the victims who most often are attacked by aggressive hippopotamus. The big old bull with bottom tusks sticking up into his top gum had immersed himself underwater trying to hide from us. As clever and effective as he thought it was, I knew that his breathing is reflex, and even if he sleeps on the bottom, the hippopotamus emerges every 3 to 5 minutes to take a breath. This was what I waited for. Obviously, the first shot was not deadly, but at least it made him swim to the shallows. There it was not a problem for me to penetrate lethally, even if it was half submerged in the water. The hippopotamus, besides being one of the big 7, is also a main source of meat in Africa, with a population big enough to be hunted for food. Besides the financial income, which helped to develop the program for the preservation of wildlife, the hippopotamus meat would feed many families for months on end. This is why I was not surprised that the locals would help us to find the hippopotamus, despite the danger of the hungry crocodiles and angry hippopotamus circling around. And, yes, a big and, despite the crocodiles, which were swimming somewhere around them, the men waded into the muddy waters to retrieve the precious animal which would provide food for their families. In amazement, they examined the broken arrow which had caused the death of this enormous 3-ton animal. The first arrow had just woken up the giant from its slumber below the water.
Yeah, the end's broken. So.
The children watched cautiously, the adults working. They did not realize yet that owing to the interest of hunters to hunt and the wild animals dwelling in their homeland, when they grow up, they too will have the chance to join in the circle of nature or the cycle of life. In the next episode of The Ultimate Shot, I will introduce you to the king of the African savannah.
Was it a wounded lion?
A wounded lion. Yeah. And the French guy ran away and he opened his own. First got me fall.
You will see and understand how lions and people can live together and how easily the hunter becomes the hunted when following the tracks of the deadly predator. You will also see a leopard hunt for the secretive spotted cat, known in the past as the most fearful man-eater. Join us in this quest for the ultimate shot for Africa's big cats.